Released this past Friday, you heard it right here on RTL SA, the brand new single from Anna Wolf. And joining me today on the show all the way from the UK, and I say all the way because it is quite a way, but you are a South African girl at heart. Is that true?
Absolutely. And nothing will ever change that.
Come on, you must hate the weather there.
I'm not going to lie. Of course, I hated the weather when I moved here. But it took me about 2 years before I actually started enjoying what the essence of London is. And finally, I'm there now. So I'm neither there nor here, which is the best place to be without judgment.
Nice. Okay, so you're in London now. How long have you been there?
I'm now going on 4 years.
4 years. Okay, so you haven't totally acclimatized yet or forgotten your roots. Where were you born?
I was born in Pretoria.
Okay, cool. The hometown of our gold medalist who won gold in the swimming the other day.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? Are you still a big South African supporter, or have you become a sort of a 1 foot in the UK, 1 foot in South Africa type of person?
No, I think when a person goes about it that way, it would be quite a sad way to live, really, to be bluntly honest. So South Africa just has different dynamics to London and vice versa, and I think each has its own contrast. So I don't really think about it that way, that when things happen in South Africa, that it's separate from me. I think it's still very much a collective thing that we as a world experiences. Regarding the Olympics, I'm going to be honest, I did not watch, but I keep getting great updates from my mother-in-law, who's following every move in the game. So we keep getting updates on the WhatsApp family group, which is pretty cool.
Now, we're not going to talk too much about sport, but I do have to just really mention Saturday night's little rugby game that happened in South Africa. What's the news on the ground like in London? Because it was a proper hiding that the British and Irish Lions got.
First of all, it's really nice to be in a country where there are so many South Africans. And I think that's what made it easy as time progressed to feel like I haven't moved that far away from the people that I grew up with and the characteristics or the sense of humor, especially that we as South Africans have. So I must say, hearing South Africans being so excited about any kind of South African games, let it be rugby or football or whatever it is super cool. And you can definitely feel the energy when you move through the streets, because I live in an area called Twickenham, and there's so many South Africans here. So yeah, everyone was sitting at the pubs eagerly waiting for the game to start, and the rest was history.
Which sets us up for a beautiful match next week, because obviously it's 1-1 in the series. Now, I was very excited when we finalized the interview with you last week to chat to you, and then particularly hearing your new single on Friday. And I played it live without hearing it before, because I wanted to be also surprised, just like my audience as well. And I really was, because based on some of your previous singles, this one seemed to be a little bit more intimate, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and what a cool way to go about it, because I think when you do that and you haven't listened to the track and then you listen to it with the listeners, you know that instant feeling of, do I like it or do I not like it, or what does this mean, stems from a truthful space, instead of harping on it, nitpicking on it, and so forth. What you were feeling initially hopefully sticks and you'll continue to love this song. But yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It is a more intimate song, and it's also, as metaphorical as some lines are, it's probably the most literal song that is on that EP, because it really explains the story of being in a relationship from a very young age and then fluctuating in and out of that relationship, knowing that it's not the best relationship for you. But I'm a true believer that if you find yourself in a relationship that might not be good for you, or any situation that might not be good for you, I feel that your higher self always manages is probably the wrong word, but finds its way to tell you and guide you out of that toxic relationship or out of that dark place. And that's when we reach those moments where we truly witness that we are much stronger indeed than we give ourselves credit for.
Do you think this EP is sort of a growth within yourself to a certain degree, and this is maybe like all your writing, and I did a bit of research and looked at a lot of your songs or whatever, but all your writing is very deep. But like I was saying, with this song, it just feels like there's been a maturity that's come along with you in this specific, on this specific EP, so to say.
Yeah, most definitely. I think, when we look at when the EP was made, it was just before the pandemic. And I thankfully listened to my intuition, because I had all these tracks and I really wanted to go and record them back in South Africa with Matthew Fink, who worked on my very first record as Taylor in 2012. Yeah. And I was being nudged, I was being pulled in the direction to go to South Africa as quickly as possible to make this record with him. And thankfully I did do so. So it was right before the pandemic. So my, life happens in seasons. So right before the pandemic, when I did go into studio with Matthew, I was in a whole different headspace. It was just about creating art and, doing something bigger and better and more fresh than I did before, and so forth. But then, interestingly enough, it's almost like the record was an indication of what was about to happen in the unfolding as my life continued. Obviously, yes, through the pandemic, but also through a loss of quite a few friends and family members to the pandemic. And I think the way that I see it is my music is a prediction, at least to me, it is, of either what's going to happen or things that might be in my subconscious that comes to the fore. And hopefully through this journey that I myself is going through, the listener would be able to be taken on that journey as well.
You know what's really interesting for me is looking at your live show versus listening to this latest single, and even your previous singles to a large degree. Nobody quite expects your live show to be as in your face as what it really is, because you are like wild on stage. It's like you're an absolute performer and entertainer, and if you don't know that about you, or haven't seen that about you, you wouldn't expect that listening to your music.
No, you wouldn't. You're right.
And it's all a good thing. It's all a good thing.
Laughing because I remember when I just started out. It's interesting as a performer when you start out, you don't quite know what you're going to be like on stage. It's something that just develops. And first of all, it starts from a very nervous place, right? As a young artist, you start off and you're all over the place, and then eventually, when the nerves get ironed out, you start stabilizing and it starts going into this natural state of just being. And I think that's definitely what happened to me into now what is known as the Anna Wolf experience, because it is quite the contradictory to seeing or buying the record and just listening to it on vinyl or on CD, if people still even do, or on Spotify or wherever, and then going to a show. Yes, it is quite different. I think that's why people always say, have you heard of Anna Wolf? It's great music, but have you seen her live? And what brings me such joy to that is exactly what I wanted to do as an artist, is I wanted people to leave a show, even if they went, you know what, this is weird as hell, I'm definitely not interested in seeing another show. But I wanted them to be shifted and moved. And to me, that is so important, because I easily get bored. So for me as an artist, if I can stimulate an audience and give them that visual entertainment, then my job is done.
Being a musician sorry, I'm busy sipping my coffee and talking at the same time. But being a musician myself, there's always been a debate amongst musicians about whether you should perform what's on the album or whether you should do something totally different in your live show. And a lot of musicians are of the opinion that they'd rather do something different in the live show to give the audience added value, so to say. But then you get purists who might argue that, well, people want to hear what they've heard on the album. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, I've watched so many live shows and then the artist does something different to what is sung on the record. And sometimes I'm disappointed because I'm used to hearing that specific version. And sometimes I go, oh, wow, this is actually super cool. I think at the end of the day, you know, if these things need to unfold organically. I think they can't be forced. I think if you're an artist who likes improving on stage, do it. You know, whatever is truthful and feels real in the moment, I'm all about that. I actually don't like rehearsing before a show. It obviously does depend on the show, if I'm rehearsing with a band or an orchestra, whatever it is. But a lot of the times, I mean, especially with Johnny Late, who I play with there in Johannesburg and in Pretoria, or Cape Town as well, all over. But Johnny and I don't like to rehearse because he just knows the songs really well. And he knows inevitably that I'm just going to be improvising like 50% of the time on stage. So for me, to answer your question, but that's purely from my perspective, I like to zhush it up in a live show. You know, I like to leave people going, wow, that was actually so different to the record. It either tops it or it lies just beautifully balanced in conjunction with.
Awesome. I'm pretty much of the same opinion, you know, like I also hate rehearsing, mainly because I'm lazy, but
yeah, I think that's it. The same here. I think that's it, definitely.
Where did it all begin for you? Obviously, yeah, in South Africa. When did you realize that music was the thing that you were going to do, and when did you decide to throw your weight in behind it and give it your all?
I remember I grew up in a house where we listened to so many different genres. My dad used to play every single genre you could think of, from Bach, Marilyn Manson, TKZ, any Mendoza, anything that was new and happening at the time, he would play it really loud in the house. And as a kid, I would dance and sing along to these beats and various rhythms and various genres. I definitely think that that played off on my subconscious. And you know, at the same time, didn't grow up in the most healthiest of environments as a child. So music was my way to escape, was to create an imaginary world. And I definitely did that probably every single day of my life. So that in itself translated into me just going, I remember early 2000 going, oh, wait, this is what I want to do. And so early 2000, I would be like 13, 14 years old. And I was just like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And my dad bought me my first Cort acoustic guitar. And
Nice.
I had some lessons and off I went.
How many instruments do you play? Because I've seen in some of your videos you banging
I mean,
around on the
not
piano, and then you were smashing drums
I
at
play
one point.
all kinds. I do. I play all kinds. Not amazingly well, but I mean, if you put something in front of me, I could definitely bang some sort of cool out of the box rhythm or melody out of it. Yeah. So pretty much everything. Yeah.
So how did it begin for you? Did you just start doing like open mic things or competitions? I know there was a big competition that you took part in, and we'll talk about that, Nana. But as a young musician, how did it all get started for you?
I was quite stubborn. I never played open mic nights. It was below me. I was like,
Okay.
I don't need to do this, you know. And I was just not interested. I was interested in writing my material and booking shows, and that's what I did. I entered a lot of competitions. I at least had the understanding that, hey, you know, if you want to get your stuff out there, you're probably going to have to get yourself into the right circles. And I did. I entered like when Battle of the Bands was still happening in South Africa. I think one year with my first band, I came third or something like that. Martin Rocker and the Six Shop won. And then it was like Blackjack second. And then my band at the time, which was called Malfunction,
Okay.
came third. We clearly malfunctioned shortly after that. But so I made sure that that was my main aim. You know, if there was a function, if there was a corporate event, I would go like, I can play. I'll come play my own. And I never did covers. I hated to do
Okay.
other people's songs. I was so adamant to do my own music from the get-go. And I opened up a beauty contest in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And I sang in front of like a panel of judges and, you know, typical beauty contest kind of setup. But there was someone in the audience from a record label. And at the time I was 14 years old. And they saw me and said, hey, do you want to maybe send us more of what you've got? And I did. And I got signed at age 14 and kind of got started that way.
Do you think that was okay? And I don't mean this to sound bad anyway, but do you think it was a cute factor, or was there something in your music that they actually specifically picked up?
I think it was a bit of both. You know, at the end of the day, it's business for them. It's a product. Can we actually sell this person from a visual aspect, and can we do so from an auditory? So the track was really good, and I can honestly say that non-biased. You know, obviously I wrote it, but I do look back on it now with more perspective. I mean, it's obviously been years, and I go, you know, that was really a good track. You know, it was also what was happening at the time was very much in conjunction to what was happening on radio with South Africa specifically. And I mean, that was still in the olden days where olden days it was the other day, but feels like the olden days where, you know, whatever was playing on radio was determining where the industry was at, you know. Now it's quite the opposite, or at least it's balancing itself out to, you know, the underground scene getting the same amount of attention as the commercial scene. So yeah, I think a little bit of both.
What was the thinking behind going to the UK?
I knew I had to, in terms of broadening my horizon, in terms of getting my music out there to a bigger market, for sure, yes. I knew that, you know, I came to London in August 2017 for the first time. And it was actually to tour with Johnny Clegg on his final tribute tour. I was very lucky enough to join him on that. And we played Hammersmith and Apollo. Well, Apollo in Hammersmith. And that was my first taste of London. And outside of that show, I played my own little show surrounding that specific date. And I mean, in one show, in one night, you know, people would come to your show from New York, from Los Angeles, from Puerto Rico, from Czech Republic. And one night you can reach so many different cultures and so many different thinking human beings. And that in itself was really, really attractive to me. So it's about broadening not only my scope in music, but also me as a human, you know, to learn and connect. And it was just the season for it.
Now taking that or that specific thing out of it, how different is the music industry in the UK versus that in South Africa?
Well, that's quite a vast answer that needs to be given, because if we look in the context of what's playing on radio, for example, like radio is still a big thing in South Africa, because it's just a smaller market and it's a smaller industry. And, you know, I think it's normal for the business to run that way because there aren't many avenues for artists. Yes, obviously social media and so forth, but I think there's still very much a thinking and understanding that if my track is not on radio, I am not as good as, or the journey is just going to be a little bit harder for me because I might be an alternative artist, or I might just not be doing, you know, catchy tracks. Well, at least not to radio standard. So that in itself plays a big role. So if we look within the radio market and what's playing there, but if we look at what's playing here in London, for example, you know, and that's the biggest question is like, you know, there's so many amazing artists here in London. How are you breaking through the noise? You know, what are you doing differently? I can honestly say that my experience thus far has been extremely positive. I am very blessed to know that I do music that does have that little bit more of a question mark or something fresh or something different, because that in itself is breaking through the noise. So here in London, you can totally break through in the market by just touring and gigging and playing the right shows. And then organically, that can translate to going onto radio. Where in South Africa, it's different. You know, there are less venues to play at. You can't necessarily make a living. You know, yes, let's say I have 12,000 Anna Wolf fans in South Africa. Well, that's great. That's amazing. They buy my records. They listen to me on online streaming platforms and so forth. But, you know, if I was still living there, I can play maybe 2-3 shows a month, and then you have to give it a rest break again, and then you can play again, and then you have to give it. So it's too much of a juggle. You know, when you look at it from that business aspect, which is very important to do if you just want to be making art for a living, you're going to have to make these kind of decisions. And also, I mean, if you're listening right now and you're a South African artist, you can't necessarily leave the country because of your visa or passport that you have. I think it's so important to try and enter as many international platforms as possible. So look out for any international songwriting competitions, or getting my music out there, or and that's, if I was not given the opportunity to move to London, I would have inevitably just kept resorting to those kind of opportunities.
Do you think that being a South African artist in London, you are treated differently, or are you respected as a professional in your trade?
It's such an interesting question. And unfortunately, we find ourselves in a world where we're very much in a space of being labeled. You know, we have to label stuff. If we don't label stuff, then, you know, things kind of fall out of place, at least from your perspective in the context of where you find yourself at. So unfortunately, yes, I have come across some promoters before I actually moved to London, where people didn't necessarily want to bite when they heard that it was a South African artist. I think there's a little bit of a stigma there. I think there's a little bit of a, you know, what possibly could they be doing that is so different that can, you know, have the potential to break through. But at the same time, I definitely think that that is a, sometimes we as South Africans, and I say we because I refer to myself as well, we're constantly finding ourselves in a vulnerable space where we need to fend for ourselves. So we come from a place of sometimes insecurity, the wanting for more recognition, the fact that South Africa in itself is so far away from the other countries and you have to fly quite far to get to America, or, you know, even to London. I think that in itself plays a role if we're talking specifically within a musician's perspective, because we feel quite far removed, and there is this sense of wanting and needing to prove ourselves. So I think that definitely plays a vibrational role when it comes to communication with promoters across the board. But luckily for me, speaking again within my perspective, when people see me live, they go, "What? Why have I never heard of you?" Or how can we help you book your next show, or whatever. And that always, you know, my ego sometimes gets quite nudged by it, because I go, "Yeah, now you respond, you know, now I'm good enough, you know, well, you know." But then I go, you know what? This is the place we be in. This is how we as human beings interact, not only within the music industry but also outside of, you know. First prove yourself to me, then I'll let you in, you know. And unfortunately, we would now and again have to deal with things like that.
Right. I'm going to play Believer in just a little bit, and quite honestly, I absolutely love that song. It's just got such a real... Okay, before we do that, alternative indie, that's how you describe your genre. But I think it's a bit more than that. I don't think you can really label your genre, so to say.
Yeah, oh, Noel, that's great. Exactly, we come back to labels. I think, you know, the show in itself, an Anna Wolf experience on itself is like a whole other genre on its own, you know. It's theatrical, it's operatic, it's there's classical influences in it, and then you listen to the record, and then it's got those elements as well, but it's not as raw and as visceral. And with Believer, I think Believer is definitely the word indie is so,
so broad.
Yesterday. Yeah, it's too broad. I'd say it's alternative, which means you can't pinpoint it. It's out of the box. It's in your face. And it's got a sick beat, which I love.
Totally agree with you on that. And, I'm going to play that in just a second. And then when we come back, I want to... Because what I normally do with Monday Madness is I normally put my guest in a tight corner. And I don't tell them. I never warn them. Ever. Because... I don't want them to say, sorry, I'm not available anymore. So when we come back, I'm going to put you in that tight corner. But don't worry, it's not bad. You'll survive it. Just going to ask you one or two hard questions about what's going on in the world. But before we do that, in my show, I do a thing called the Power Play Trivia. And I always give the answer around about this time of the show. So can I bounce the question off you? Do you want to take a guess at my trivia question today?
Okay, do it.
All right, let's do it. If this thing will play. Okay. It's not playing.
Time to test your knowledge with Power Play Trivia.
I don't know what's going on. Okay, but anyway. Okay, the Power Play Trivia question today, which is brought to you by Bev Miller. The question was, which country is the largest producer of vanilla? You willing to take a crack at that?
I mean, my Alexa is right here. Should we ask her or should we not?
No. I know the answer already. I want to hear. Give it a guess. It might surprise you. Vanilla.
Oh, you see, this is, okay, Rome.
Rome. Italy is incorrect. I only got one correct answer today from Marius, and he said he picked it up in a cooking show. The correct answer is actually Madagascar, believe it or not.
Oh, of course. I knew that.
Yes, some reinforcement. And when we come back, we're going to put you in that tight spot and ask you some hard questions.
Top 10 vanilla producing countries. 10. Comoros. 9. French Polynesia. 8. Uganda. 7. Tonga. 6. Turkey. 5. Mexico. 4. Papua New Guinea. 3. China. 2. Indonesia. 1. Madagascar.
Caban Investments, an impact venture capital company that turns entrepreneurs' dreams into reality. A core focus is to invest in high-growth opportunities to maximize returns for shareholders, at the same time also providing a comprehensive service offering to cover all business needs. From small startups to larger companies, Caban offers the entire spectrum of service offerings required to get business moving. Visit www.caban.co.za for more information. Caban Investments, turning entrepreneurs' dreams into reality. Own your piece of RTL by sponsoring a feature.
Burning topic. Bad Joke Friday. In other news, Power Play Trivia.
You will be helping keep RTL on air and building infrastructure for as little as 300 Rand per week. Have your or your company's name associated with the fastest growing online radio station in the world.
The RTL SA Top 10. Your top 3.
Contact RTL for more info on WhatsApp 064 134 0020 or email info@noeljohnson.co.za. It's time to mass debate on RTL SA.
You're listening to RTL SA.
You're listening to Monday Madness.
It's my Monday Madness guest, Anna Wolf, and Believer. Definitely one of the songs of yours that I absolutely adore. I absolutely love that song. Like you're saying, such a good, energetic beat to it, and it's a great song. Well done and congratulations on it. Time to get into some serious stuff now. And when I say I put you in the corner, I'm not really going to put you in the corner, but I am going to. What Monday Madness is really about is getting to know you as a person better. So I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the UK with regards to the pandemic, because it was quite bad there, and you must have been like really freaked out for a bit there when it first started and things like that.
Yeah, when the first lockdown happened, I think as many people, I was in a space where I was trying to stay optimistic and positive that this will soon be over and, you know, we'll wipe out our eyes and then all of a sudden we'll ask, hey, where did this virus go? And I think that was just a coping mechanism. It was like almost like I went into survival mode, as many of us did. It was hard, you know, it was a bit of a roller coaster, but it also gave me, and I think for a lot of people, the time to reflect and be forced to look at their lives and look at things almost like from a bird eye view. And then where things are now, I mean, we're in a space now, obviously, yes, everyone is still wearing their masks, staying safe and so forth. And even though all the majority of the restrictions have been lifted, you can see a lot of people still, you know, are keeping their distance. And even myself, I find myself in a space where I am still very cautious.
How did it impact you as a musician? Obviously, all musicians suffered the same fate to a large degree with not being able to perform and things like that. But how did it impact you, and how did you adjust and adapt?
You know, my journey has been an interesting one, taking into context to where I'm now, because before the pandemic, I was going through a lot of challenges mentally. And so I did a lot of work on myself. You know, I did a lot of research. I knew that my power in getting hold of my anxiety and really moving into a space where I'm now more so often, where I remind myself that I'm not my thoughts. So I did a lot of work on myself. So by the time I was hit with the pandemic, there was obviously angst and there was a lot of question, but there was more so stillness of knowing that I had no control over this. Because of at least the journey that I've been on, there was knowing is not even the right word. It was just a being in the unfolding of it. And that, I must say, I was blessed in being in that space, because I think if the 4-year younger version of me was going through the pandemic in my old patterns of thinking, oh my gosh, it would have killed me. It literally would have killed me, because I was my thoughts, you know, and to me being in a space like that with my older pattern of thinking, I would have gone like, this is it, there's no point, this is never going to end. So thankfully, by that time, I was in a much more still place. As a musician, not being able to play shows and so forth, luckily, I've had and this has always been the case, I've had my fingers in so many different projects that by the time the pandemic hit, from a financial aspect, it didn't hit me as hard as it would have for someone who just completely solely relied on their music. So I must say that I was fortunate enough to be okay.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good news. This is where the trick question comes in now. This is where I put you in the corner, because I have a burning topic on my show, and early in the show I covered a piece from DW News regarding statistics, and the question they were asking was, are the statistics, COVID-19 statistics, reliable enough to actually determine policy as it has been up until now? So this is where I put you on the spot. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, we look outside of the context of COVID. That is how the world determines how we as human beings move forward. It lies in the analytical, you know, we even look with it within the music industry. You know, it's all according to analytics that determine how quickly your music is moving, or how slow it's moving, or how big your target market is, etc. And we can take this, obviously this is now another example of how the world views how to move forward. There is so much going on social media, and I have family members even who are in the headspace of determining what their next step should be, from a vaccine point, from a non-vaccine point, through what these statistics determine. And that's where it gets so messy. It gets so messy if we... you know, it must be so frustrating. And I said this yesterday, actually, because I did another interview, and I said, you know, if you're from South Africa and you're listening, it must be so frustrating to almost be treated like a child, in essence. I mean, the restrictions that get placed on South Africa, and thinking that this is going to control, you know, or help the situation, leaves you as South Africans vulnerable, and even more so in a space of question and not trusting their government for that protection and guidance. In short, Noel, what I would say is, and this is what I've been doing, and this is what I would have done if I was still living in South Africa, I will refrain from going on social media. I will make sure that my resources and where I get my answers from is either directly from a platform that, you see, in my case, in context to who I am, I trust my intuition on these things. I don't just go with the majority vote on things. And just become still as much as possible when making the decisions in if that's going vaccine or non-vaccine. Yeah, it's such a big question, Noel, because it covers so many different aspects of how the government is treating it. What do these policies mean? What do these analytics really mean? What is the longevity of these things that they're trying to implement in order to make sure that they're keeping the community safe? Like, there's so many aspects to this. So I prefer to stay out of it. I prefer to keep my intuition strong, and I prefer to be in a space that I come from that is a still space, a space that I can make informed decisions, and just making sure that my resources is not infiltrated by millions of people's perspectives and answers to things
on social media. Well said. Well, I never said it was going to be an easy answer, but well handled. Well done. Well done. Right, what's in store for Anna Wolff going forward? Short term and long term. So let's say short term in the next year or so, and long term maybe in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right now, focusing on this EP. Romance was born, main focus, getting it out there. There's a lot of traction building here in the UK. There's some shows in the pipeline that I'm doing now. They're not a lot, because a lot of people are still seeing how to book, when to book, and the logistics of it all. There's also a film I'm involved in. I can't elaborate too much on it yet. It's still in the production phase of things, pre-production stage of things. There's that. Long term, making more music, getting myself back on stage, interacting and collaborating with the beautiful musicians that I've done so with in the past, and maybe even some new ones. You know what, Noel, for me, the intent in what I do is really fueled by staying creative, being creative, creating, and in my case, creating music to help people through this journey called life. And hopefully, you know, it's been doing that for them.
And you are doing a great job so far, and we look forward to seeing your name in big lights, maybe on a Hollywood movie one day. Let's see if you move in that direction. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making the time and joining us. I'm loving the new single. I'm looking forward to hearing some more tracks off the EP and stuff like that. Best of luck with that. Stay safe. Be cool. That's what I always say, because that's all we need to do is just be cool. And best of luck with everything going forward.
Same to you. Keep safe.
Will do, absolutely. And we look forward to seeing you back in the country for a tour one of these days.
Well, soon.
Nice.